After I was reborn, I stopped trying to keep my unlicensed husband from driving on the mountain road. My husband didn't have a driver's license, but he insisted on driving the mountain road. Our son and daughter were in the car. How could I let him put them in danger? I begged him to stop. But all I got was a beating from my kids and him dragging me behind the car. I took my last breath in despair. When I opened my eyes again, I was back in that moment, with my husband grabbing for the steering wheel. This time I wouldn't stop him. Smack. A burning sting bloomed across my face, and I snapped my eyes open. You bitch, pull the car over. Don't think you're so great just because you have a license. I'm telling you, even if I've never driven before, I'm a better driver than you. Rick was screaming at me, his breath a foul mix of cigarettes and booze. I was in a daze until a glob of spit hit my face, and then it all came rushing back. I was reborn. Reborn on the day my husband tried to rip the steering wheel out of my hands. I thought of the last time, of the agony of being beaten by my own children, of being dragged behind the car by my husband until I died. A shiver ran down my spine. I immediately pulled over to the side of the road and let go of the wheel. Rick, you're right. Men just have a better sense of direction than women. You should drive. With that, I unbuckled my seatbelt and started to get out. A smug grin spread across Rick's face. Damn woman, should have just done that from the start, right? He didn't bother getting out, just clumsily clambered over from the passenger seat into the driver's seat. In the back, my daughter, Ashley, muttered under her breath. If you'd just listened in the first place, Dad wouldn't have had to slap you. My son, Kevin, rolled his eyes impatiently. Mom, can you just get back in the car already? This mountain road should only take an hour, but you've been dragging it out for 2. It was a gloomy, rainy day. I stood outside the car and not a single one of them, not my husband, not my son, not my daughter, offered me an umbrella. Instead, they all glared at me with resentment. I could expect it from Rick, a gambling addict who used his fists more than his words. But to be treated like this by the 2 children I had carried in my own womb, the last shred of warmth in my heart fizzled out. So what if they were my own flesh and blood? If they treated me like this, they were nothing but monsters. I took a deep breath and made my decision. I'm not going. You guys go on without me. At my words, Rick slammed his fist on the steering wheel. The horn blared twice, sharp and angry. Rick exploded. Laura, what the hell is your problem? Are you trying to piss me off on purpose? Ashley frowned, her face a mask of annoyance. While dressing a little stuffed bunny, she shot me a look of disdain. Mom, give it a rest. Dad already apologized, so why are you still holding a grudge? You're acting like some bitter old hag. No wonder Dad's always hitting you. You totally bring it on yourself. Kevin scrambled into the front passenger seat, fiddled with the car's touchscreen for a second, and locked the doors. If she doesn't want to get in, then fine. It's not like we're begging her. Dad, let's just go. Don't make Grandma and Grandpa wait. Hearing that, a chill ran through me, even though I had already decided to wash my hands of them. It was summer break, and Kevin and Ashley had been begging me to take them to visit their grandparents in the mountains. But I was swamped with work at my clothing store and couldn't get away. Rick had agreed to take them, but he couldn't drive and was too cheap to hire a car for the trip to the countryside. When he saw I wouldn't personally chauffeur them, he beat me. It was only after my children pleaded with me that I reluctantly made up with Rick and agreed to drive them into the mountains. Now halfway there, they seemed to have completely forgotten how they had begged me. I said, I'm not going. If you 3 want to go, go ahead. With a deep breath, I wrapped my thin coat tighter around myself and started walking back toward the last rest stop. The road was slippery from the rain. Even with my 10 years of driving experience, I wouldn't dare drive too fast on such a steep mountain pass. But since Rick was so confident, let him have at it. If anything happened, it would have nothing to do with me. I never expected it. I had only taken 2 steps when I heard a car door open behind me. Rick, now wearing a raincoat, got out and charged toward me. Laura, you're fucking asking for it again, aren't you? His face was flushed with anger as he threw a punch at me. I was ready. After all these years, I knew that when he hit me, he always led with his left. I took a step back, letting his fist slice through empty air, then shot out my right fist and clocked him straight in the eye. Years of hauling boxes of clothes had made me strong. The punch sent Rick staggering back, clutching his eye. "You fucking bitch. You dare hit me." Damn right I hit him. My right hand was trembling slightly. In 2 lifetimes, this was the first time I had ever hit him back. So this is what it feels like to be the one hitting someone. It's exhilarating. No wonder Rick resorted to violence whenever I did something that displeased him. Watching him howl and stumble around, I sneered inwardly. He couldn't even take a single punch. I never made a sound when he broke my leg with a wooden stick. I couldn't resist. I stuck out my foot and tripped him. Watching him tumble into the muddy water on the side of the road, I let out a satisfied laugh and kept walking. Dad. I heard 2 car doors slam shut. My son and daughter must have gotten out. I didn't turn back. If they wanted to follow Rick to their deaths, so be it. Just as I had that thought, a sharp pain exploded on the back of my head. I spun around to see Kevin standing there, a badminton racket in his hand. Clutching my head, I swung my other hand and slapped him hard across the face. "Kevin, are you crazy? Are you trying to kill me? You little monster." The slap seemed to stun him, and the racket fell from his hand. I had never laid a finger on him his entire life. No matter what, I had always coddled him, given him everything. And now he was attacking me. A flash of guilt crossed Kevin's face. "Mom, you what?" Ashley shrieked, rushing forward. She snatched the badminton racket off the ground and swung it at my head. "So what if we hit you? You're a worthless bitch who deserves it. How dare you lay a hand on my dad?" I dodged out of the way, but Kevin lunged forward and wrapped his arms around me, holding me tight. Thump, thump, thump. I don't know how many times the racket hit my head. In my peripheral vision, I saw the shaft of the badminton racket snap. My head throbbed with excruciating pain. A warm, red liquid mixed with the rain and streamed down my face. When Rick hit me, they never tried to stop him. But the one time I hit Rick back, they turned on me. Once again, I was filled with a deep, bitter regret for ever bringing these 2 monsters into the world. This was all too similar to my past life. The fear of death washed over me. I dropped to my knees with a thud. "Don't hit me anymore, please. I know I was wrong." The 2 of them exchanged a glance, a triumphant glint in their eyes. It was the exact same look Rick gave me whenever I begged for mercy. "What were you wrong about?" Kevin and Ashley asked in unison. My fingers dug into the mud. Their question was also identical to the one Rick always asked. How had I never noticed it before? I took a shaky breath. "I was wrong to hit your father. I was wrong to throw a tantrum and refuse to get in the car." "That's more like it," Ashley said, lowering the broken racket. "Apologize to Dad and get in the car." Gritting my teeth, I bowed my head toward Rick. "I'm sorry, honey. I was wrong." Rick was used to this. He walked over and kicked me. "Get your ass back in the car, you worthless bitch." The violence finally stopped. I got back in the car, forcing a placating smile for Rick. "Honey, want me to show you how to drive it?" A look of displeasure crossed Rick's face. His pride was everything. I once tried to divorce him. He threatened me with the children, saying a divorce would be too humiliating, and if I dared to leave, he'd kill me and both of them. It was for my children that I had endured so much for so long. Sensing his anger, I quickly changed my tune. "Honey, it's not that I doubt your skills. I just think, with the rain making the road so slick, you should watch how I do it. It might help you drive even better." This explanation pleased him. The car was a stick shift. I demonstrated for Rick, but I deliberately messed it up. I showed him how to use his left foot for both the clutch and the brake. "You think I need to learn this? You women are just cowards." Rick let out a derisive snort, claiming he had it all figured out. He shoved me aside and sat back in the driver's seat. The moment he started to engage the clutch, I clutched my stomach. "I can't. I have to take a crap. I need to get out." "God damn it, you're always full of excuses." Rick raised his hand again. My son piped up impatiently. "Forget it, Dad, just let her go. You know how to drive now anyway." My daughter chimed in. "Yeah, Dad. What if she shits in the car? That would be so gross." Rick nodded at that and told me to get lost. Without a word, I grabbed a raincoat, threw it on, and got out of the car. I took a few steps back as the car started to move. Watching the vehicle lurch and swerve wildly up the narrow mountain pass, I stood on the side of the road and smiled. I turned and started walking back down the mountain. The wound on my head throbbed with pain, but I felt a sense of relief I hadn't known in years. When I finally got near the rest stop, I was able to get cell service again. I pulled out my phone, called an Uber, and went to the county hospital. The doctor was shocked when he saw my injuries. "You need to be admitted for observation." I nodded, and after they bandaged my head, I checked myself in. By the time I was lying in the hospital bed, it was already dark. I opened my phone, planning to call Rick and see how things were going. But the moment the screen lit up, a trending local news alert caught my eye. Breaking: landslide on Mountain Pass Road, multiple vehicles buried. I clicked on it and found a reporter broadcasting live from the scene. In the video, a mudslide had washed away half of the mountain road. A familiar black SUV was crushed beneath a giant boulder, with only the rear half visible. Rescue workers were using the jaws of life to pry open the doors. According to eyewitnesses, 3 people, 2 males and 1 female, are trapped inside the vehicle. The camera zoomed in. Rick was pulled from the wreckage, his face covered in blood. He was frantically pointing back into the car, screaming something hysterically. 2 rescuers were struggling to pull someone from the mangled back seat. In the shot, I saw Ashley pinned between the seat and a rock, her right leg a bloody mess. Kevin was stuck against a deployed airbag, but he looked less seriously injured. "We can only save one at a time," the rescue captain yelled. Rick didn't hesitate for a second, pointing straight at his son. "Save my son. Save my son first." When I heard that, I instinctively searched the screen for my daughter. In the bottom right corner of the frame, Ashley's face was twisted in a terrible expression. She was glaring at Rick with a look of such pure hatred that it felt like it could pierce the screen. I turned off my phone. "Lights out," a nurse reminded me. Lying in the hospital bed, I fell asleep. I slept more peacefully than I had in years. When I woke up, it was already morning. I turned on my phone to see over 30 missed calls. All from Rick. The phone had barely booted up when it started ringing again. "Laura, where the hell have you been? Get your ass down to the city's main hospital right now." Rick's roar made my eardrums ache. "What happened? Why are you in the hospital?" I asked, feigning ignorance. He didn't explain, just kept cursing wildly. I didn't have the patience to listen. I asked for the room number and hung up. After taking my time to get up and eat breakfast, I hailed a cab to the main hospital downtown. When I pushed open the door to the hospital room, Rick was lying in the bed by the window, his left arm and left leg both in casts, his legs suspended in the air. My son, Kevin, sat on the edge of the bed playing on his phone, a bandage wrapped around his head. In the innermost bed, Ashley's face was chalk white, her right leg also in a cast and hoisted up. "Mom." The moment Ashley saw me, she burst into tears. "Dad chose Kevin, my leg is ruined." Tears streamed down her face, her voice thick with misery and resentment. I walked over, feigning shock, and squeezed her hand, managing to force out a couple of tears. "How could this happen? If I had known, Mom would have let you beat me to death just to get you out of that car." "My poor daughter," I wailed dramatically. Ashley's hand, which I was holding, stiffened. She must have been thinking about the moment she hit me with the badminton racket. I sneered inwardly. Rick impatiently cut me off. "What are you caterwauling about? The boy is the future of this family. Saving him was the right thing to do. Go handle the transfer papers for me. This dump doesn't even have a private bathroom." I looked at his casted arm and gently changed the subject. "What did the doctor say?" "Shattered. I'll be out of commission for half a year," Rick said, his face a mask of irritation. "Damn it, the car is totaled, and who knows who's going to pay for these medical bills. Just a fracture." I was a little disappointed. I was about to offer some empty words of comfort when Ashley grabbed my hand and shrieked. "Mom, don't listen to him. Take me to a better hospital, please. The doctor said if I go to a big city hospital, they can save my leg." The moment she said that, Rick flew into a rage. "Bullshit. Hundreds of thousands of dollars just for your busted leg? In your dreams. Rick slammed his hand on the bed. Ashley's face went white as a sheet. She stared at Rick in disbelief, her lips trembling. Dad, they can fix my leg. Fix what? Rick spat, his voice booming. That money is for your brother's college and to get him a wife. You're just a girl. So what if you're a cripple? You're just going to end up belonging to someone else's family anyway. At his words, Ashley choked back a sob, and tears poured down her cheeks. She stopped looking at Kevin. Sensing his sister's gaze, Kevin, who had been engrossed in his phone, finally looked up. He gave a sheepish smile. Yes, sis. We can't spend all the family's money on just you, right? Ashley froze, the tears forgotten. Kevin, when you fell in the river as a kid, I was the one who jumped in after you. I held on to you with one hand and a tree root with the other until the adults came. Kevin just shrugged. So what? I think Dad's right. You're just going to get married and leave anyway. He went back to his phone. Tears had already soaked Ashley's face. She whipped her head toward me, grabbing the corner of my shirt. Mom, I'm begging you, take me to a big hospital. I don't want to be a cripple. I laughed coldly to myself, but on the outside, I gently stroked her hair. Of course, sweetie. Mom will get you treatment. I'll go ask the doctor about the transfer process right now. With that, I pushed her hand away and turned to leave. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Rick's face turn ashen. As I passed his bed, he suddenly shot up, grabbed a handful of my hair, and slapped me hard across the face. Laura, you dare touch my money and see what happens. I'll kill you right here and now, you hear me? I staggered back, clutching my face, and deliberately cried out. Don't hit me, honey. We won't transfer her. We won't. Only then did Rick reluctantly back off. Through the gaps in my fingers, I saw a look of deep, bone-chilling hatred in Ashley's eyes. Later that night, I helped Ashley to the bathroom. In the cramped restroom, she suddenly lowered her voice. Mom, divorce him. I pretended to be shocked. Don't be silly. What are you talking about? She frantically pulled her phone from her hospital gown pocket and pulled up several videos. I have proof. Look, this is from last year when he was hitting you. I secretly recorded it. And this one. She swiped to the next video. It's a video of him at a hotel with his mistress. I recorded everything. I was genuinely surprised. My daughter knew Rick was cheating. Then why didn't she tell me sooner? The cold in my heart deepened. To think I had endured Rick's abuse for so long, all for her sake. Ashley, my darling good daughter. I gently hugged her. It's okay, sweetie. Mom will figure something out. I will not let you become a cripple. Can you send those videos to me? Ashley excitedly forwarded the videos. Mom, can you make sure Rick leaves with nothing? I nodded. She tugged at my sleeve again, whining like a child. Mom, after the divorce, you'll use all the money to fix my leg, right? I sneered internally but put on a troubled expression. But there's still your brother. Mom, forget about that ungrateful brat. Ashley seethed. We both saw Dad cheating. I wanted to tell you, but he wouldn't let me. He said that's just how men are, and besides, you're not much to look at. I pretended to think for a long time, finally nodding under Ashley's persistent pleading. Okay, we'll get a divorce. And we won't take your brother. All the money I get will be for you. Only then did Ashley smile. Back in the room, I looked at the sleeping Kevin and started planning my next move. Rick was snoring on the cot, completely unaware that his beloved daughter had become the sharpest knife aimed straight at his back. The next morning, Rick was called into the doctor's office. I walked to the hospital entrance, pulled out my phone, and dialed a number I hadn't called in a very long time. Mr. Peterson, it's me. About the divorce, I have new evidence. A week later, Rick and Kevin were discharged. Their injuries weren't severe. Rick just had a fractured right arm, and Kevin had nothing more than a mild concussion. As they were leaving the hospital, Rick shot me a venomous glare. Tell Ashley she can forget about being transferred. And when she gets out, she can forget about college too. She can go to some trade school, whatever, and then get married. I said nothing. After seeing him off, I returned to the hospital room. Just as I entered, I heard the doctor telling Ashley, "For now, we can only offer conservative treatment." You really should get to a major hospital for surgery as soon as possible. Otherwise, you're going to lose that leg. The doctor then turned and left. Hearing this, Ashley immediately started crying to me. Mom, did you hear that? The doctor said if I don't get transferred soon, my leg will be useless. I walked over and tenderly wiped away her tears. I know, honey. I want to get you to a better hospital as soon as I can. But your father has all the money. Then hurry up and divorce him. Ashley grabbed my wrist, her nails digging into my flesh. Mom, didn't you say you contacted a lawyer? I feigned hesitation. But. No buts. Ashley screamed hysterically. Do you want to see me become a cripple? I rushed to hug her and promised. Okay. I'll divorce your father right away. Then, right in front of her, I dialed my lawyer's number. 3 days later, the divorce papers were delivered to Rick. My lawyer told me that the moment Rick received them, he almost attacked her. She warned me to be careful. I thanked her for her concern, my mind already working on another plan. Laura, you're fucking dead. Rick stormed into the room on crutches while I was peeling an apple for my daughter. He yanked me up from the stool and raised his hand to strike me. You dare divorce me? You think I won't kill you right now? I grabbed his fractured right arm. Ack! Rick howled in pain. Let go. I spun him around, my knee slamming hard into the small of his back. Rick stumbled and fell, his casted arm crashing against the corner of the bed with a sickening crack. My arm, he wailed, curled up on the floor. From her bed, Ashley watched him and let out a cold laugh. Serves you right. You're an abusive, cheating bastard. Mom should have divorced you ages ago. Rick froze. He slowly turned his head toward his daughter, a look of dawning realization in his eyes. It was you, you worthless little bitch. You've been behind this? That's right, it was me, Ashley sneered, her face twisted with a sick pleasure. I'm sick of you, you sexist old bastard. Rick's expression turned monstrous. He lunged toward the bed, his hands clamping around Ashley's neck. I'm going to strangle you today, you ungrateful little monster. Stop, I yelled, pretending to panic as I tried to pull him off. I had already placed the fruit knife on the corner of the nightstand next to Ashley. Ashley's face was turning purple. Her hands flailed about, and her fingers brushed against the handle of the knife. Go to hell. A glint of steel flashed, and Rick grunted. Ashley frantically pulled the knife out and stabbed him again and again. You too. Rick staggered backward and collapsed to the floor with a thud. My hand trembling, I pressed the nurse call button, a cold smile on my lips. Perfect. The only fingerprints on the knife would be Ashley's. When the nurses and doctors rushed in, Ashley was still screaming hysterically. He was trying to kill me. He was trying to kill me. I rushed over and hugged her, whispering in her ear, Don't be afraid. Mom will be your witness. Ashley collapsed into my arms, sobbing uncontrollably. The blood-soaked fruit knife clattered to the floor. Mom, I killed someone. What am I going to do? She was shaking all over, crying hysterically. I patted her back gently, soothing her. Don't be scared. Mom will have a good talk with your father. You're still just a kid. He's a grown man, he's not going to hold a grudge, is he? Besides, you're his own daughter. He's not really going to let you go to prison, right? At my words, Ashley's face went deathly pale. But Mom, Rick was trying to strangle me. He'll definitely want me to go to jail. I cupped her tear-streaked face. Silly girl, why would Mom let you go to jail? Worst case, I'll agree to give your dad a bigger share of the money when we divorce. I bit my lip, feigning difficulty. Mom can borrow money to get your leg fixed. Mom. Ashley hugged me tighter. She leaned on my shoulder, clutching my clothes like a drowning person clinging to a piece of driftwood. I'm going to check on your father. I gently pushed her away and walked out of the room. The red light outside the operating room was on. I dialed Kevin's number. Your father's been in an accident. Get to the hospital, quickly. Half an hour later, Kevin rushed into the hallway, out of breath. Mom, what happened to Dad? Your sister accidentally hurt your father, I said, trailing off. Why don't you go sit with her for a bit? Kevin's expression changed. How did she hurt him? They were arguing and she accidentally stabbed him. I was deliberately vague. He shoved me aside and stormed toward the room. I followed slowly behind, hearing a furious argument from within. Are you crazy? How could you stab Dad? Kevin's roar was audible even through the closed door. He deserved it. Ashley screamed back. He abandoned me to save you, and then he tried to kill me. Bullshit. Dad would never try to kill you. You must have done something to piss him off again. I leaned against the wall, listening to the sounds of things being thrown and the vicious curses, a smile playing on my lips. How familiar that sounded. It was the same thing Kevin used to say whenever Rick beat me. Mom, you must have done something to make Dad mad. Now, Ashley was getting a taste of her own medicine. I turned and walked away. 2 hours later, the light above the operating room finally went out. When Rick was wheeled out, I almost laughed out loud. His face was as gray as a corpse, with tubes sticking out of him everywhere. The family can go in to see him, but please don't wake him up. The nurse wheeled him into the ICU and gave her instructions. I stood by the bed, watching the numbers flicker on the monitor. Kevin came in and stood guard over his father with me. Sometime during the night, Rick's eyelids fluttered. Rick, you're awake. I feigned delight, tears coming to my eyes on command. Rick's lips moved, as if he was trying to say something. I had no patience to listen. I just grabbed his hand, my voice trembling. Honey, you can't call the police. Ashley's still so young. She didn't mean it. I'm begging you, don't report her. Yes, police, Rick rasped. Monster prison. I dropped to my knees beside the bed with a thud. For my sake, please don't call the police. She's our daughter after all. Rick weakly shook his head. Just then, Kevin pulled out his phone. Dad, I'll call them right now. No. I lunged for the phone. She's your sister. Kevin shoved me away. When she was stabbing him, did she remember he was her father? I collapsed onto the floor, watching Kevin dial 911. My heart soaring with joy. The wail of sirens grew closer. 3 police officers walked briskly into the room, the one in the lead flashing his badge. Ashley Smith, we need you to come with us to assist in an investigation. Ashley trembled, clinging to my sleeve. I patted her hand reassuringly. Don't be afraid, Mom's here. But the police asked me to step out of the room. Ashley lay in bed, shaking with fear. After the police finished their on-site investigation, the attending physician was called in for questioning. I heard them talking in low voices in the hallway. The victim has 7 stab wounds, 2 of which penetrated internal organs. However, considering the suspect's severe leg injury, half an hour later, the officer announced their decision. Given the suspect's specific injuries, we've decided to release her on bail pending trial, but she will be required to wear an electronic ankle monitor. After taking their statements, the police left. When Kevin heard the news, he stormed into the room. What? That's it. He pointed at Ashley on the bed and roared. She stabbed Dad 7 times. He's still in the ICU. How is she just out on bail? She should be in jail. Kevin, Ashley shot up in bed. I should have let you drown in that river. With that, Kevin grabbed the water glass from the bedside table and was about to throw it. I rushed forward and slapped him hard across the face. Get out. He stumbled back, clutching his face, his eyes wide with disbelief. I spoke coldly. Make another scene, and I'll stop paying your father's medical bills. Kevin's eyes widened. Mom, I cut him off. If your father can abandon my daughter, then I can abandon him. It's your choice, son. Do you want your father to live, or do you want your sister in prison? Kevin's lips moved, but no words came out. He turned and slunk away. Ashley cried, asking, Mom, am I going to go to jail? I sighed, gently stroking her casted leg. If only your dad had died in that car crash. You wouldn't have a broken leg, and none of this would have ever happened. Mom, she interrupted me suddenly, her voice strangely calm. If Dad dies now, will I still be sentenced? I feigned shock. What are you talking about? How would your dad die? Don't think such crazy things. Get some sleep. When your dad wakes up, Mom will try to talk to him again. Ashley said nothing more and turned over to lie down. I closed my eyes and pretended to sleep. In the dead of night, I heard Ashley struggling to get out of bed. The clinking sound of her metal crutches faded down the hallway. The next morning, a nurse rushed into the room, her footsteps hurried. "Mrs. Smith, your husband's heart has stopped." I followed the nurse to the ICU in a panic, just in time to see the doctor removing the EKG leads. "What happened?" I asked, my voice choked with sobs. The attending physician shook his head grimly. "Our preliminary assessment is a post-operative pulmonary embolism." I cried my eyes out as I had Rick's body sent to the morgue. When I returned to the room, Ashley was staring blankly at the ceiling. I sat on the edge of her bed and gently took her hand. "Your father is dead. I'll have the police report withdrawn. I've already lost my husband. I can't lose my daughter too." She slowly turned her head, a smile spreading across her pale face. "So Mom, does that mean my leg can be fixed now?" "Yes," I said, gently wiping the cold sweat from her brow. "I'll contact the hospitals in the city right away. I've already looked into it. It'll cost about $50,000 to fix your leg. Even though we only have $30,000, Mom will borrow the rest for you." "Mom, Dad's compensation money." Ashley pushed herself up eagerly. "The payout from the car accident." I put on a look of sudden realization. "Oh, that's right. The insurance company should be paying out a good amount, but your brother still has to go to school." Ashley's eyes turned cold. Just then the door was pushed open, and Kevin stormed in, his eyes red. "It was you. You're the one who killed Dad," he screamed, pointing a finger at Ashley. "You murderer." I stood in front of the bed. "What are you talking about? The doctor said it was a pulmonary embolism." Then what was she doing in the ICU in the middle of the night? Kevin's tears were streaming down his face. "I was coming back from the bathroom last night and saw her walking out of Dad's room." Ashley's face went white. I shouted, "That's enough. The most important thing right now is to arrange your father's funeral. If you dare to spread any more rumors, I'll disown you as my son." "Mom," Kevin roared and stormed out. Ashley watched him leave and smiled sweetly. "Mom, when my leg is better, let's go have a talk with my dear brother about that compensation money, shall we?" I nodded and returned her smile, thinking to myself, she'll never get the chance to have that leg fixed. "All right. I'll go talk to your brother again. You get some rest." I tucked the blanket around Ashley. Walking out of the room, I dialed Kevin's number. "Son, where are you? I need to talk to you." "The morgue," came the muffled reply. "I'm staying with Dad." As the elevator descended, I composed my expression in the reflection of the metal doors. When I pushed open the door to the morgue, a wave of cold air mixed with the smell of disinfectant hit me. Kevin was kneeling beside a body covered with a white sheet. He whipped his head around at the sound of my footsteps. "Mom, why won't you let me call the police?" he asked, his voice hoarse. It was obviously her who killed Dad. I didn't answer. I gently lifted a corner of the white sheet. In the cold light, Rick's pale, bluish face looked like a moldy piece of frozen meat. The bruises from where our daughter had choked him were still visible on his neck. "Kevin," I said, covering the body again. "You knew your father was cheating, didn't you?" His body stiffened. He stammered. "How did you know?" "That's not important," I said, looking him straight in the eye. "What's important is, why didn't you tell me?" Kevin's gaze darted around. "Dad said all men are like that, and besides, it's not like you'd ever dare to divorce him. So you and your father were lying to me together?" My voice trembled with a perfectly timed sob. "Now your father is gone. Are you going to let your sister be taken away too?" Kevin was silent. I continued, "I've already lost my husband. I don't want to lose a daughter too. I'm going to withdraw the police report." Kevin's anger was palpable. "So what if Dad cheated? Does that mean he deserved to die?" He shoved me aside, his face contorted with rage. "I am definitely calling the police." With that, he bolted for the door. I took a few steps after him, then stopped, a smile touching my lips. That evening, the same two police officers from before came to the hospital room with Kevin. The lead officer flashed his badge. "Hello, ma'am. We need to verify a few things regarding the death of Mr. Rick Smith." Ashley grabbed my arm in terror. I patted her hand reassuringly and turned to the officer with a weary smile. "Please ask anything. Your son is accusing your daughter of premeditated murder, the officer said, opening his notebook. He also claims you were aware of it and covered for her. That's impossible, I said, shaking my head. Ashley was acting in self-defense. Her father was trying to strangle her. Mom, Kevin suddenly rushed in front of me. You know perfectly well that she's the one who killed Dad. A look of terror crossed Ashley's face. Tears instantly welled in my eyes. Kevin, how can you make up such a lie? I turned to the police, my hands trembling as I unbuttoned my collar to reveal the bruises on my body. Look, this is from when her father hit me before. Ashley was only trying to protect me when she... The officers exchanged a look. The younger one suddenly asked, Ashley Smith, were you in the ICU at 3 a.m. last night? On the bed, Ashley's face went ghostly white. I rushed over and threw my arms around her. How could she go anywhere? Her leg is broken. Kevin, are you trying to destroy this entire family? Check the security footage. Kevin yelled. If you don't believe me, check the footage. The two officers looked at each other, then left to check the security cameras. Ashley was pale with fear. She beckoned to Kevin with her finger. Come here. What for? Kevin asked warily. Come here and I'll tell you why I killed Dad. Suspicious but curious, Kevin walked over and bent down to listen. I saw a cold smile form on Ashley's lips. She wrapped her arm around his neck and dug her fingers into her brother's eyes. Kevin, if you won't let me live in peace, I won't let you either. Arg! Kevin let out a blood-curdling scream. By the time I pulled them apart, Kevin's eye sockets were empty. The police reviewed the security footage and confirmed that Ashley had snuck into the ICU late at night. They took her away. As she was leaving, Ashley looked back at me, her eyes filled with pleading. I chased after them to the elevator, crying out in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Mom will get you the best lawyer. Don't be afraid. The moment the elevator doors closed, I wiped away my tears. 3 months later, Ashley was indicted for first-degree murder. At the trial, I, as her mother, expressed my complete shock and ignorance of the events, even tearfully pleading with the judge for leniency. But the evidence was irrefutable. She was sentenced to life in prison. As for Kevin, his eyes had been gouged out, leaving him completely blind. With great sorrow, I placed him in a state-run long-term care facility, paying the absolute minimum for his upkeep and leaving him to rot in his own darkness. And me? I pocketed all of Rick's death benefits, the insurance payout, and all our family savings. I sold the house, deleted everyone from my contacts, and took the money to a small town down south. There, I opened a little clothing boutique and lived a quiet, comfortable life. Every now and then, I think about my 2 children. One rotting in a prison cell, the other going mad in a nursing home. After all, they brought all of this on themselves.